asked on Twitter about why teams in North America didn't just try and ban the Nidalee, just, you know, against MikeYeung. Funny enough, though, he actually does play a lot of other champions that he's pretty good at. He's not just an Nidalee one trick, but Fnatic are clearly saying in a best of one, there is zero reason for us to even gamble against this Nidalee pick.
Yeah, run through MikeYeung, 5-0 on Nidalee, but 1-4 on Lee Sin, 2-2 on Elise, 1-1 on Rek'Sai, and 0-1 on Kha'Zix. So clearly the majority of his success has been on the Nidalee. Although when you look at his solo queue account, it's his lowest win rate champion. It's actually below 50%.
It's all the bait. Just losing on purpose on it. But the thing about this ban here, I just feel like in a best of one, that's where it makes a lot of sense, because it is a pick maybe you don't play against too often in Europe, and if it is such a comfortable pick for him, it makes sense. Tahm Kench ban, classic Fnatic. You can't camp a Tahm Kench lane very easily, and if you want to play around bottom lane a lot, well then Fnatic are getting rid of it.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to watch Fnatic match up against these North American teams as well, because they just seem so set on playing their style. Just looking at Rekkles' champion pool, it's basically Kennen, Tristana, and then maybe Twitch. And then there's all these signature Fnatic champions like the Shen top or the Camille support that they end up running. So how you actually decide to play against that in this punishing best of one format will be very interesting to watch.
Seems to me that Fnatic really wants Xpecial to try and play a range support in the bottom lane, something that of course is much easier to try and shut down in the early game through ganks from Broxah, TPs from sOAZ. Now, Elise is open. That is normally the go-to pick, but oh, actually, Zac was open. See, sometimes you just forget Zac is even a champion because he's just so often banned.
For the first time in summer, Broxah will get his hands on Zac, and Broxah has been one of the more mechanically proficient junglers. I'm excited what he can do on what is one of the most powerful junglers.
So you're saying he's winless on Zac, so
oh, there we go.
I actually want to say it now. I obviously think Zac is great, and I'm all on the Zac hype train. I actually think Elise is the best pick possible for Broxah, even better than the Zac, but obviously you don't want to give Zac to the other team, which is then the problem for you, so that's one of the reasons Fnatic also probably feel like they have to grab it this time around.
And I do feel like you're giving up a lot when you are first picking the champion like Zac, because now they're giving Phoenix1 Caitlyn, who has become almost a permaban champion over in the North American LCS, and it's the NALCS Spring Split MVP who is getting that champion.
But have you heard about Kennen Tristana? By any chance?
What does Kennen do?
Kennen, well, on 7-13, can no longer just get the full benefit of the Hurricane.
Does he do it?
Still,
even though it's
you
nerfed?
should, yeah, you should. It's not that nerfed.
We're talking about this earlier. The changes, while they are changes, I think Kennen can still work just fine. The Hurricane was about wave shove. You can still go static shiv. If you want to be able to duel, you can just go Phantom Dancer after the Blade of the Ruin King. The build can still be mostly the same as well as the way you play it.
Yeah, the build I mainly see from Rekkles and solo queue right now on Kennen is Blade of the Ruin King, PD, Frozen Mallet, and then as a 4th item, you can still go for Hurricane if you need
Frozen Mallet 3rd? How does Rekkles change his build order? Anyways, it's going to be a Blitzcrank for Jesiz. Forward facing, play around the bottom lane, all in on the overdrive.
But this is what I talk about with the Braum and Tahm Kench ban right now. Fnatic very clearly, they want to focus the bottom lane as we always see. They get rid of some of these tanks that can be hard to kind of camp and shut down. So Blitzcrank right now suddenly goes up in value as a pick, especially if Xpecial feels forced to play a ranged support.
Yeah, and NA Galio coming in strong in both these first and second games. Even in the last week of the European LCS, Galio was falling in priority. And with the nerfs, I was expecting to see a lot less of it, but obviously these North American teams did just... Phoenix1 actually played on Sunday on patch 7.12, so as we saw from Bjergsen, you can still pull off a lot of the same things with the pick, and now they could have a conservative mid laner, or they could flex the top and put MikeYeung on jungle Gragas.
The Cassiopeia ban tells me it's most likely mid lane Galio coming in, as that is one of the answers a lot of teams have picked up against Galio. Actually, funny enough, why Galio mid in Europe disappeared a little bit, because everyone was just kind of picking Cassiopeia against it. This game, though, here with no jungler picks, unless, of course, it is going to be the Gragas jungle, which is very likely in this case, but can also still go top. Then we still have to see if MikeYeung wants to get an early game jungler.
And, of course, Kled still open and available. Zig, definitely one of the more proficient Kled players. It's a Talia taken off the table by Phoenix1. Where does Fnatic go with their last 2 picks? They have to pick top and mid, and sOAZ has, in recent weeks, been playing champions that can support that bottom lane.
Yeah, and that's actually why Phoenix1 have done a good job here in taking away Gragas and Galio and then banning the Shen. Those are the 3 main picks for sOAZ to assist the bottom lane, being it with Galio ultis or teleports, of course. He likes to play these tanks. I saw Trevor right there point the Kennen towards the top lane. I think we say that every week,
I do.
And
I
very
get in trouble
rarely.
every time.
Very
It
rarely
might
do we
happen.
see it happen.
It never happens.
But it could, Deficio.
It could. Like, he could pick Tristana. You could go Tristana, but Morgana coming in as the Blitzcrank counter here for Xpecial. Now, that does work well in theory, where you can, of course, block the grab with the Black Shield. Problem for Morgana is when then the Zac joins, Morgana is completely useless, and then suddenly there's too many things. You can't block all of the CC, and on the one guy you do save the Black Shield, yeah, he might stay alive, but you die.
Well, they'd be okay with that with Arrow on Caitlyn if they make it to the late game. So still a lot of flexibility there. I think it's important that Fnatic deny this Jarvan pick right here. Otherwise, Phoenix1 could do essentially what TSM did in the last game and use that even defensively with just the Galio and the Gragas to disengage Fnatic's aggressive style. The Jarvan, I think, is very good here.
Now, Syndra, obviously, good pick here for Fnatic, but also LeBlanc is something they actually use quite a lot, or have used in the past, as like a mid lane choice with a lot of mobility. They can run teleport. Corki then is the third choice. We also see quite a lot from Caps, where instead of having teleport, you have the package.
4 games played, undefeated. He's gone 27 and 21. Kills, deaths, assists. That rounds out the Fnatic team composition. Phoenix1 have to lock in their final pick for Zig in the top lane.
Yeah, it could just be Kled. Yeah.
And it's the Kled. No real surprises there. 7th time this split, so we'll see him playing a champion.
Yeah, and Kled is Zig's signature champion. It's become a meta pick now, but before it was meta, it was still meta for Zig. So he's very comfortable on this champion, and it works very well with Galio.
This is a comp, though, from Phoenix1 with a lot of tankiness, some very slow team fights where you're grinding down a target with Caitlyn and Galio and Kled, of course, as the guys kind of trying to deal some damage onto Fnatic. And they are facing right now a tanky support in Blitzcrank, of course, full tank jungle and Zac, and of course Jarvan, who will a 3rd and 4th item get some tankiness as well. So Phoenix1 really want to play super long and slow team fights, because otherwise they just don't have the burst damage.
And that's incredibly hard to do against Fnatic, who is always forcing fights on you from all angles, and they have the tools for it in this game as well. Teleport on Jarvan. Zac can initiate from a screen away. Rekkles is also an initiator from the AD carry position. So Fnatic, even though it's not exactly the same picks we're used to seeing them on, they still have set themselves up for the same style.
A similar flavor from Fnatic, a style that they coined as animal style in spring. It has been refined and cleaned and developed, and now it is Fnatic style.
Animal style in NA is Thousand Island, cheese, and onions on fries. So a little bit of cultural difference going on here. But
just a little. Well, we are in Berlin for some cultural difference battles on the Rift. You guys know the deal. Hashtag NA win, hashtag EU win. Last I checked, EU was winning, but North America should be waking up. So jump on Twitter and submit your votes. Will Phoenix1, the team most likely to play 6th, take down the team expected to take 1st?
You're jinxing it. The caster curse.
This was the expectation battle to start it out. But truthfully, more questions than there are answers.
Yeah, and a lot of it, of course, goes into these predictions with Fnatic. One thing is their performance in the EU LCS. We talked about how a lot of the players are performing as some of the best in their role in Europe. But also just Fnatic as a team with their style, because it is very unpredictable in some ways, where they can surprise you with Rekkles will suddenly gank the side lane in the late game as an AD carry. Jesiz plays very aggressive on these supports that can create picks. Fnatic play very fast, and in that sense are hard to play against if you're not used to the style. And this is a best of 1, so you don't really have a lot of time. You got about 20 minutes, and you got to figure it out and start winning some team fights.
Yeah, and even the early game, you have to worry about Fnatic's creative level 1s. Like sometimes they would blind invade red buff and then rush to the next red and try and deny the enemy jungler in some way, especially a jungler like MikeYeung, who, yes, he's had a good start and the team has protected him a lot in the jungle, but he has such limited competitive experience. Playing against a team as creative as Fnatic in the jungle could be difficult.
And I think it also is a lot harder to carry a game on Gragas jungle. Obviously, we have seen great tank performances where you are the main guy who kind of sets up everything for your team, but you're not going to be like the main damage dealer. You're not going to be the guy who's kind of invading first and finding the enemy jungle, trying to 1v1 him. Because I feel like P1 have done a great job of kind of playing around their rookie, and the lanes have been assisting him. Xpecial as well said in an interview, is like, MikeYeung just came in and said, I'm going to play this. This is the style we're going to play with it, and that's how we're going to do it. And they're like, all right, I guess that's what we're doing right now. A lot of Western teams, the jungler plays around the lanes instead, not the case on P1.
And I'm so excited, both junglers playing a champion for the first time on stage. Zac for Broxah, Gragas for MikeYeung. We'll see how they perform you talked about sort of the man that's played around. If MikeYeung is that for P1, for Fnatic, it's no doubt Rekkles, very well publicized. He's on his most famous signature champion right now. 6 wins, 3 losses on that Kennen. And I think Sneaky's probably the best NA interpretation of this Rekkles that I've seen.
Yep.
And now we need to see whether or not P1 can actually handle Rekkles' Kennen.
Yeah, I mean, 6-3 record, but they have a 13-3 record in the league, so actually it's his lowest win rate champion.
Yep, it's the only champion he's lost on.
And in this particular lane, double ranged as well as having Caitlyn, P1 is advantaged in the laning phase, as long as they can avoid the ganks. So it's incredibly important that they get early jungle pressure or keep the vision in the bottom lane. Because if P1 can actually play around this bottom lane and keep Rekkles and Jesiz from making plays, that's one of their paths to victory.
Whenever Fnatic have been in this situation where they know they're going to get pushed in the bottom lane, they haven't actually tried to gank it like level 3 or 4 every single time. They sometimes just accept, okay, we wait, we get level 4, 5, 6, something like that, and just while our tower might start dropping pretty low, then they set up like a teleport play, the Zac comes flying over the wall, the package play from the Corki, and then suddenly you get this 5-man party in the bottom lane just before that tower can actually go down, and that's how Fnatic can try and get the advantage back in the bottom lane.
The thing is, that shouldn't be a surprise.
It should not be a surprise.
That should be something that teams are aware of, and the EU squad struggle to deal with it. Let's see if NA has an answer. P1 double teleports for Zig and for Ryu. Ryu, by the way, back in the EU stage. Excited to see him here, and got that supportive mid laner.
Here we go.
Welcome back.
Being ganked. Stretching strike comes out. Now Kiss! Ryu's going to get down the Durand, but there's just not enough damage, and Ryu literally walks away.
Didn't even look back.
I also got to note the cull on Caps, much lower damage than he would have with the Doran's Blade, but that's Galio for you. He wasn't really harassed down beforehand. Potentially can just TP back to lane if he wants to.
That's kind of the thing about a Corki and starting item. There's a lot of different options. Most of them are very defensive, like Doran's Shield I've seen quite a bit. Corruption Potion is another one. Of course, gives you a little bit extra damage in some of the early trades. And the call is actually the first time I see that from Caps in Europe.
I like it against Galio. Galio is a guy who basically tries to nullify the laning phase, so if you're going to be getting all of your farm, you may as well convert onto your power spike faster. I don't think there's actually kill pressure on either side here. A Doran's Blade would have done a little bit more damage, but they still wouldn't have killed Ryu with it, so he's stacking up that cull and he's going to hit it early. Unless they kill him because he has less health.
Well, Ryu wants to stack up the kill. Caps has already tried to run away a little bit late on that flash, but will be enough to get in range of Broxah. Gonna pull MikeYeung into the wall. Caps summon a spell less for the follow-up ganks.
And remember, guys, last game we saw TSM play Galio mid, force the cleanse from the enemy mid laner, and then try and set up a play right after. Now, of course, MikeYeung used his flash as well with the body slam, so a little bit harder to set it up, but it is possible for P1 to return to mid and try and gank Caps once again.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially if Caps sticks around for longer waiting on a buy, but you can also see Broxah staying very close to the turret. Plus, there's a big difference between an essentially itemless Gragas or a Runic Echo's Elise, which Sven Skaren was, who can burst someone from 100 to 0.
Slight difference in damage.
Yeah, so essentially if they try to turret dive at this point, no kill. They'd have to wait essentially until Runic Echoes.
So right now Caps gets his free laning phase with great first back as well. Instant into magic penetration boots for him. Of course now with 80% magic damage on the autos, that's even better than it used to be before. And overall, it's like, as Corki, it's really not about dumpstering the laning phase. Like, you are so strong once you start getting items under your belt. Trinity Force, great power spike. And then whenever you add another item, being it Infinity Edge or like a rapid fire cannon, it just feels great every single time. Once you hit 4 full items and you're like, okay, this is the moment, like you're in heaven, that's where you really spike.
Well, talking about itemization, gentlemen, completed boots pretty much across the board here. I mean, Rekkles and Arrow, they've got their Berserker's Greaves. Rekkles was doing that a few weeks ago, something, Deficio, you talked about a lot in terms of the play style of Rekkles, shoving that lane out, and no changes here today.
Yeah, move speed and attack speed come at a premium. In this matchup specifically, AF Rekkles is going to do that on Kennen, since he wants to be able to have the movement speed difference on his opponent to land stuns, especially when he's level 6. And then Arrow's going to want to, he actually needs to match that because he has more range than the Kennen, so he needs to continue to keep that movement speed equal.
we're at that point now where MikeYeung is looking for that return gank. He's actually calling for Xpecial to get some more damage.
Oh, so easily set up. Everything lands for first blood, Phoenix1.
That's just a really good setup, and we talked about it. You know, you can return gank. It wasn't just the Gragas for the damage. Xpecial just recalled, ran from base straight into the mid lane, and just went for the gank.
Deficio, I was watching NA LCS and I learned something. What was it? MikeYeung, MikeYeung, MikeYeung. First blood, multiple ganks, and the crowd learned the chant too.
It's 2 words. Anyway, I think Xpecial's gank there was the kicker as far as what pushed it over the top, because just the Gragas and the Galio actually bring a fairly low amount of damage, and the fact that they had the pressure in the bottom lane with which to make that gank happen.
Well, it feels like it's happening.
Oh, man.
sOAZ a little bit late on the flash. The barrel comes out. Look at the display. sOAZ, you beauty.
sOAZ using his own ulti to cancel the knockback from Gragas' ulti. Suddenly he can then use his EQ out, and he actually stays alive. So he did use the flash, but that was a great escape from sOAZ. A lot of pressure from P1 though, and they're actually able to set up a lot of like control wards in the river as well. Fnatic not really responding with anything in terms of vision control, and it's allowing MikeYeung to enter these lanes and actually go for these ganks.
Yeah, Fnatic was the best early game across both the EU and NALCS this split. Not necessarily there as of yet, but when sOAZ avoids that gank, it is a loss of pressure on the rest of the map for Phoenix1, and they're still out-CSing across all 3 lanes.
Yeah, that's important to highlight. The double range lane of P1 with the Caitlyn, strong laner, is right now not winning the bottom lane. They're not really putting pressure on tower. They're not stopping Rekkles from farming.
Yeah, and even though Arrow was the Spring Split MVP, his laning stats as far as CS differential this split have been some of the worst in the North American LCS. On top of that, when Xpecial does roam middle, he's naturally going to have to play more defensive. So that was kind of the cost of getting that first blood.
MikeYeung pops the blast cone, jumps into the blue pit of Broxah, who, by the way, is equaled level 7. Ward instantly cleared out. That sweeping trinket, and now MikeYeung goes back to grab the Scuttle Crab. Taking a look at the backs. By the way, Rekkles has come back to lane with that recurve bow. Definitely looking to stack up that W as much as possible.
I remember how we talked about Fnatic trying to make a play in the bottom lane with teleports and the jungler when this tower is under pressure. sOAZ saved his TP. He just ran right back to top lane, but Zig did the exact same. So both top laners are ready for that bot lane fight to happen. Hello.
Well, P1 going to get ahead of that play by putting some pressure in the top lane. You can see Ryu was making his way up. Hero's entrance available to him. But not a huge amount of damage to talk of. You're relying on Zig for a lot of that.
Yeah, that was definitely a 3-man dive being lined up, though, knowing they had sOAZ's flash down and knowing Ryu had his ultimate. That's the same play we essentially saw in the TSM G2 game, just with slightly different champions. So it was good for Broxah to be up there, but that gank pressure does stop them from snowballing around Rekkles, at least at this stage in the game.
Delaying it a little bit for now. I see Jesiz and Rekkles are trying to steal this group off.
Yeah, but look at the mini-map. Jesiz is going to get caught out. Arrow, 90 caliber nets over, gets the hero's entrance. That's a good, aggressive call. Silence comes out from Jesiz. You realize he's doomed. Summoner spell has been used, and kill credit picked up by Arrow.
And now the first instance we see of Fnatic trying to make a swag play in the bottom lane, just blind invading with 2 people, is immediately punished. Arrow and Xpecial, even though Xpecial binds the blue buff, still pick up a pretty easy kill on Jesiz because he was far overextended.
Look at the bot lane right now. Rekkles was hiding in that brush with control ward in it. Broxah was around to see maybe if they could make a play on P1, but Arrow and Xpecial are feeling very safe down here. They are able to also get a lot of damage on this tower, and time is kind of running out for this defense in the bottom lane for Fnatic. If they don't actually pull the trigger soon, this tower will fall.
And all of that the CS advantage, undone by Arrow picking up this kill.
It's actually two games in a row where I feel like the European teams are underestimating Galio in the early game and the impact of his ulti with how quickly he can join for some of these plays here. Because Bjergsen had a lot of success in the last game. Early on, 3-0-3, like almost instantly was his scoreline. Ryu now joining in early.
Yeah, the big difference, though, in this game as well is there's 2 kills for Phoenix1, but they're 500 gold up if you're looking at Fnatic because their lanes are still almost permanently pushed. They're winning the majority of the CS battles. Bottom lane turret falling could happen because against a Caitlyn lane, that's going to be where the big fight could potentially be.
I love Zig, man. He's just constantly able to react to this potential bot lane play, and he's going for engage.
Well, charge is the call. Let's bounce. Catches onto Ryu. Justice punch forward for Jesiz. Defensive flash away from Broxah, and Jesiz, remember, flashless from the previous engage. Mana passive will come up, and ace in the hole, not enough damage. It was close, though.
Had that potion running the entire fight. P1, though, they're still staying around Drake. Again, as I'm saying here, the fact that Zig are actually reacting to how Fnatic likes to play around bottom lane by him just roaming down early on this plate here, saving teleport as well, not just going all in for his own laning phase, makes it harder for Fnatic to make that one play to save the tower, because they even have a ward placed here next to Arrow that could TP on.
And it's the Galio that I think is blocking a lot of those things. At first, just the threat of having him there should dissuade you from making the aggressive plays, or the threat of him ganking top lane is going to pull Broxah away from that. Not to mention, the early game gank frequency from the Zac is going to be so much lower than something like an Elise, which Broxah has been so good at.
I mean, that's why we did question a little bit in the pick and ban phase if Elise maybe is not the better pick, but let's see mid lane.
All right, Jesiz is nearby, but so is MikeYeung. Jesiz decides not to engage Broxah on an invade mission while Caps is under threat of a dive. Okay, gentlemen, P1, they got tower first blood, they're 2 kills up, but they're only 100 gold ahead. Fnatic are farming like a monsters. A lot of it is with Broxah, it feels like.
Yeah, and this is usually a pretty bad sign when your team seemingly has all the advantages but does not have a gold lead. If they can keep the tempo up and make something like the
Gragas, though,
then they could actually pull ahead. Here comes MikeYeung.
Well, here comes MikeYeung. MikeYeung. Caps is able to Valk over the wall. Jesiz is taunted up by the idol of Duran. Mike takes a couple of shots from the tower. And it's Xpecial that gets the third of the game.
P1, they see Kennen sitting in the bottom lane. They know they have the tankiness and the damage to win a fight in mid despite diving a tower. This is 2 turrets down right now. P1's early game looking very clean right now.
Deficio, is this where European fans start to worry? Or is it too early to say that? Fnatic, many consider the pre-tournament favorites. What do you think about that answer as it looks like sOAZ is going in on Zig? Zig's still got flash available, gonna need that one. Nope, Skull lets him hop over the wall. That was so cheeky.
Oh, Skarl. Zig definitely knows the limits of that champion, and I think Fnatic definitely trying to force a few plays now, but MikeYeung gets the flash body slam onto 2. There is a flash and cleanse onto Caps. He actually manages to save his cleanse, but they are so heavily outnumbered with Rekkles' Kennen being in that bottom side that they can't turn anything around after that dive.
And a play like this is able to happen when a team has done all the correct steps. You know, P1, after killing that bot lane tower, invaded the jungle, got full vision control, could see everyone from Fnatic on the map. They knew they weren't spotted, and then they were setting up for that dive with the mid lane push. It was actually just a lot of steps followed and completed by P1 that allowed them to go for that play. And again, they get rewarded. Another kill, another tower, and now they have the gold advantage.
Well, P1, it's a minor one, 1,000 gold. As we approach 15 minutes, looking at the minimap setup, it feels to be split. P1 on the top quadrant, while the rest of Fnatic look for their first tower. And it will be Zig doing his best to defend this.
And this is a game where Galio can really shine because he can push his lane and then leave and maybe go and defend another lane or set up a gank. He's actually towards bottom side right now. Zig is trying to defend the turret. Fnatic, if they go for the dive, then you know Galio shows up instantly.
Yeah, not quite sure what Ryu was thinking with that roam. It would be a very bold 2v3. Really, they should be threatening the roam on the top side to trade turrets in this scenario.
I think just in the case here for Ryu, it was specifically if they try and kill Zig, he ultis in. Fnatic was smart enough to say we don't actually need to kill, we just want the tower, so just go away. Kled, you're a bit annoying here, and then they took down the tower.
P1 going to take down another tower. That's their third of the game. All outers knocked over. Gentlemen, this is only the second time all summer that Fnatic have not secured a kill at 15 minutes. The only other time was against H2K in week 4. And that early game play, not seeing it from Fnatic. They are staying even, and with Zac and Jarvan, and some itemization being completed for Rekkles, soon Caps, you have to feel like the time is fast approaching for this Fnatic squads.
I mean, we have to remember that Kennen is a champion who does really well in the mid game, and Caitlyn, of course, a champion who does not that well in the mid game. She wants like to get to a double zeal item now, but Kennen with Blade Rune King, like this is kind of his moment to start shining in the side lane. P1 are ready for it though.
Yeah, and I do feel like the Corki also has pretty great late game scaling, but if Fnatic keep missing their plays, and we know MikeYeung was in the vicinity, P1 really does feel one step ahead of Fnatic with most of these plays. Teleport coming in from Zig, and we know Ryu can join.
Rekkles needs to flash, does get that one down. Ryu's got a flash to follow. Fnatic are split up. The charge
Zig
from
wants out.
Zig will allow an entry. Broxah lets bounce, delivers 2 men into the back line, but that makes it closer for Ryu's hero's entrance. The Gragas barrel comes down and nobody's dead yet. Fnatic able to deal with the on-gauge as P1 back away.
And P1 actually loses tempo with that play. So many of them got harassed down to around half health by Caps' AoE. The Rekkles now has push priority in the mid lane. They might get this turret before P1 can defend.
Let's find out what Fnatic do afterwards. The tower not gonna fall yet. Minion wave still alive as Ryu got himself that Rod of Ages and Spectre's Cowl. Different build to what we saw from Bjergsen. Ryu now is gonna try deal with this Fnatic squad, and 1v4 holds the tower.
Ryu very clearly trying to embrace the fact that the Q from Galio gets a little bit, got a little bit of a buff in terms of AP ratio, then obviously lost a lot of base damage, so overall a nerf. But he's trying to compensate by actually going for some AP, which is something we don't see very often.
Yeah, seeing Rod of Ages on Galio feels so odd now, because I know when he first came out, Rod of Ages was in the recommended items, but it wasn't the best build. The full tank build was clearly the best one, so you would almost be able to identify the people who hadn't played that many Galio games as the Roa users. But now with the change, it might actually be the better item again.
Fun story, when Orianna came out, Nash's Tooth was in the recommended build as well.
Yeah.
And Power of Evil still doing it this day.
How did that work out?
Yeah.
Did he
So
win?
you're saying Power of Evil reads the recommended items when the champion first
Back
comes
then,
out.
and he never
Learns
changed.
it.
He never changed.
adapts.
He liked it that much, never wanted to change it. But this build from Ryu, I'm not a big fan of Rod of Ages on Galio, because I think the moment where you really need the wave clear is mainly in the early game for yourself. Like, you're gonna get enough wave clear late game anyway, and it's gonna be more about your team fighting. And just getting like pure tank items just seems superior on Galio, because your job is not to have insane damage in a late game team fight.
Well, let's see how it works out for Phoenix1 and Ryu. We're getting close to 20 minutes. The game still feels a little bit like a stalemate, despite P1 having 3 towers, 3 kills, and they are reading Fnatic well, but this is a good sign for P1. You know, they're definitely continuing that upswing.
But now you have to look for the roams from Rekkles specifically. He likes to join sOAZ's lane and go for some ganks, but now it's just sOAZ alone.
Well, sOAZ looking to 1v1 arrow. A lot of damage should make this one trivial. Spring Split MVP got dunked.
Oh yeah, he did. He also burned his flash, realized the heal was not worth it, because a Jarvan at that level of items is just going to crush you. The fact that he took the damage from the EQ, then flashed so the Cataclysm could follow, sealed his fate.
That's big for Fnatic right now, despite being down so many turrets. The fact they can actually find kills in the side lane, which is the classic one for them when they do play again with things like Kennen, and actually sOAZ on a carry instead of just a tank. So the fact that sOAZ have been successful and finding that first kill is pretty huge for Fnatic. They're still trying to come back, like quote-unquote come back in this game, despite it being so even in gold.
Well, taunts onto Caps in the mid lane. Kind of going to fizzle. Ryu's just trying to wave clear, and yeah, I mean, you guys mentioned a little bit earlier, yes, P1 will have all these objectives, but the game is still even. That usually is not a good sign for the team with all the objectives. If they're not denying the opponent and extending a lead, it's not great.
Rift Herald is used in base because MikeYeung was going to run out of a cooldown timer on it, but you just look at the pressure of the map right now. It is in the side of Fnatic, so it can turn. Good ward.
It's spotted out by that control ward.
Maybe a fight mid?
There's going to be indeed Caps, flashes away. Bear Trap on a rope comes down. There's no Cataclysm, remember. sOAZ used that one on Arrow. Caps is killed and he lost his flash. Now Jesiz becomes the target. Bear Trap on a rope. Gonna get fired out. Catches Jesiz. Here comes Broxah. Delivers them under the tower. Cataclysm's now available. sOAZ holds on to the cooldown as MikeYeung's the target of Rekkles. Rekkles will stun him up and take him down. The fat man's out. Now Zig gets pulled back by the stretching strike. He's got no skull yet. Does manage to come back up as he's in range. Broxah charging up, but decides not to fire on the slingshot. Eventually, the Herald goes down as well.
I think that the setup here from P1 was correct. When you play against Fnatic, you don't want to try and match them like in terms of 1v1 the side lane. Instead, just try and hard engage. And that's exactly what they did in mid. They came in with Gragas, they had Zig in there on Kled as well, and they said, you know what, we just need to start a fight straight onto Fnatic's mid lane here to force the rest of Fnatic to leave their side lane and come into a potential team fight. So the disengage is great, they get a kill onto Caps, they get his flash as well, and now they're kind of trying to continue in a 5v4. They get too close to tower, though.
Exactly, and you look at the way that the rest of P1 roamed over, they ran behind the Baron pit, so Fnatic outnumbers them while they're getting too close to the turret. And Rekkles was still in that lane, so he could just collapse down onto MikeYeung and get the kill. So, like you said, the idea was right, but the continuation of the play for P1 was wrong.
Always the problem as well when half your team is in the Kled ulti and they're kind of running really fast towards the enemy, and the other half is pretty far behind.
This is a problem that P1 created for themselves. I quote from Champion Select, P1 need long, drawn-out fights to chip away and hammer down and eventually get damage. So don't they have to chase because that's what their team comp needs, that extended amount of time?
Yeah, well, I think they want the extended amount of time to get Arrow to his items and then protect him with the Galio and the Morgana. Where I'm skeptical with this P1 composition is whether or not they actually win in a late-game teamfight against a full-item Corki and a big Jarvan who can dive in with Gargoyle Stoneplate. I do feel like, or even the Zac for that matter. So I do feel like this could still be anyone's game in the late, but it is very peculiar for a Fnatic game, as they've been the highest combined kills per minute team in Europe, 81% first blood, and neither have many kills or first blood in this game.
I said exactly the same thing last week when Fnatic played against Splice. We were standing there, we were casting it, expecting like, 20 kills or something to happen, a lot of towers would fall. Almost nothing happened. Mid lane, something is happening.
Jesiz
just baiting everyone,
nothing
is actually happening. But that series, like, we had 6 kills in the game at like 35 minutes in Fnatic versus Splice. It was all about just pushing side lanes, roaming into mid lane, a few steps on vision into like a Baron setup. So it wasn't the standard Fnatic in that case, not as fast. They have definitely slowed down in some of the games. This one I feel like was just a lot of credit to P1 actually understanding how to avoid that bot lane party from happening. So Fnatic couldn't really snowball anywhere.
And I think you have to give both teams credit this game. P1 have been proactive, they have made plays, but Fnatic have found their gold and found their advantages elsewhere on the map. Plus 40 CS in the bottom lane, plus 30 CS in the mid lane, plus 40 for Broxah. Not that it matters a huge amount. We're seeing that build from Rekkles, PD second. We know he likes his Frozen Mallet. Maybe he'll just get it earlier today. But for Fnatic, now we need to see if their macro can overtake that of P1. I mean, the expectation is that it can.
Yeah, they have shown much more proficiency in that stage of the game so far this split. Phoenix1 was a last-place team before last week when they were able to 2-0 and take down Immortals in an impressive 3-game series. But one thing you can see about this game, even if a lot of the Fnatic things haven't been true, Rekkles getting his farm has been true. Yep. 10.4 CS per minute so far this split. I've never seen someone that high for an entire split. I think the highest I remember seeing was Ven at 10.1 in one of his splits. So Rekkles will get his farm, also and it's just a matter of what he does with it.
The only player in EU LCS to be above 10. Absolutely everybody else is below that number. Rekkles, he gets funneled the resources, he secures them, and for the most part this summer, he's used them to pick up wins, which is why Fnatic are one of, if not the best team from Europe.
So you highlight the PD obviously coming in due to the changes to Hurricane, how it works with Kennen's W. Now Blade Rune King from Caps, he's done it once before, simply because he's playing against so many tanks. On the side of P1, he wants that % magic damage against them. And that's interesting for Fnatic because now they've hit this 2-item spike on both carries. And I really feel like this is the moment where they actually gonna look much stronger. But they are not that far ahead against P1, and Arrow is almost sitting on 3 fully completed items, so it's not going to be easy for Fnatic.
Yeah, third pickup is QSS here for Rekkles. A little bit more defensive. Also, this is the least amount of towers that Fnatic have taken, 25 minutes. This entire split as they look to knock over their second and do secure it.
They're looking for Ryu too. I mean, trading a Drake for a kill and a turret could be a very good trade. Looks like Ryu has no help anywhere close.
No, he doesn't. How long does it take Fnatic to kill him? And kill is secured by Rekkles.
Not long.
The man, the myth, the legend, he goes down in a few seconds.
I remember Ryu when he was in Europe. We got to see a few of those, oh, my team is on one side making a play. I'm just going to push that other side. I need that tower real badly. Ryu does find himself overextended and he goes down. Fnatic will get a top tower as well for it. It's not even just about that one kill, as you said, Jatt. It's the fact that they can get something right after it.
And get the map pressure back up. Rekkles also got to shove that wave again. He's now at 280 CS, only 26 minutes in. And because there's no Galio, they can just shove down yet again. And they basically converted the standing gold that they lacked when it was 3 turrets to 1. And they find themselves with a 2,000 gold advantage.
And the answer, if you are P1, is simply to run it down mid and then just try and engage onto Fnatic's mid lane core. If you can't do that, then you have to go in towards Baron, and you need to force a play around that Baron objective, because then you can actually get a 5-on-5 team fight. You can't stop the Kennen in the side lane by running up 1 by 1 and try and kill him. You need your entire team Obviously, again, you want to wait slightly for Arrow to be ready, but then it's actually straight up just group mid, run down, and then look for that fight.
Going to be very difficult. Arrow is continuing to farm up. 250, he's almost got that second Zeal item completed. As per usual, a lot of the physical damage on P1 is going to be mitigated by all of the armor that's now starting to come in. sOAZ heading to third item, which means he's heading towards tankiness. And that is a worrying trend for Phoenix1, because this team fight's just going to drag out even longer, and they've got to somehow keep Arrow alive from sOAZ, who's playing a fantastic Jarvan game.
Yeah, and I think the 6-item Caitlyn is incredibly frightening in a 5v5 team fight. The question will be whether or not Phoenix1 can get that run it down mid 5v5 team fight that Deficio was talking about, because the battle in the side lanes is very real. Rekkles shoves it faster and also outduels most of the people on Phoenix1 right now, so it is hard for P1 to get all the lanes shoving at the right time in order to run it down mid.
Yeah, because here, it's interesting that P1 actually does not just push the mid lane all the way down to that tier 2 tower and then say, you know what, Fnatic, you're going to farm from here. Because they had Kled already pushing.
Now.
Yeah, now they're doing it, and this is actually good because Zig is on his way, and Fnatic obviously are just playing super defensive in mid lane because they know, okay, this is the win condition for P1. It's hard engage on us in that mid lane, so that's also why we had Cleanse on Caps to try and make sure he stays alive.
And I think some of this is why we've seen Phoenix1 struggle a little bit as a team this split. In this situation, they had the side lanes pushed. They can just get the mid lane priority, move to sweep and control the Baron area, and then force. But they didn't do that. Arrow recalls or fakes his recall, goes and clears Raptors, and nothing is happening.
Yeah, because also they're actually doing it.
Well, let's see if Fnatic get trapped in place. Barrel interrupts Broxah. He gets pinned into the wall. sOAZ has forced a flash. Now Broxah's in trouble. Let's Bounce is available to fake Dark Binding. Not enough to kill him. Rekkles uses something to heal. Hero's entrance comes down. And there's the slicing Maelstrom. MikeYeung is down. P1 needed too much time. And Fnatic somehow outplay.
P1, they try to just get that fight in the mid lane. It's not over yet.
No, it's not. Zig's going to get Skull back, jumps back on. Power Fist comes out, and defensive flash gets Ziggs to safety.
Yeah, a massively successful fight by Broxah's Zach, really turning the tides towards the end of it. Now it's 5 versus 3, no vision. Zig would want a TP, but that Baron is falling fast.
Couple of pings onto the wards inside the blue buff of Fnatic. Arrow and Xpecial are going to go for an attempt. Not secured. Well, everyone knows the MikeYeung chant. Maybe they need to start learning the Broxah chant. 0-0-4 and Baron, and a significant lead for Fnatic.
Right there, we saw the way to win the game for P1. They got the fight they were looking for, but if you're unable to then win that fight, well, then it gets really difficult for you to actually win the game.
Yeah, and Fnatic has been so good in the team fights here. No one really gets onto Caps, and he rains damage on them pretty much the entire time.
But this start is still fine for P1 because they get so much damage on Source, but then it's Broxah from the corner right there, gets onto Arrow, forces him back, and then pulls 2 guys into the ulti of Rekkles. This is one of the things we've highlighted in the past in EU LCS with the Kennen as well. It's not about just instantly flashing into the enemy team with your ulti. Save it, save it, save it for the right moment, and it actually combined with that Zag ulti looked really good for Fnatic.
Zig right at the end does remount, but it is too little too late because they've lost the core of their team fight.
Well, Caps carried.
I mean, that's every game where Caps is playing Corki.
Good addition. Thank you for that, Deficio. I agree.
Hey, do you need more? Okay, fine.
Well, this will be 5-0 in summer.
I'm going to predict that he's going to sit about 40% damage dealt in this game here, because the Kennen pick will deal very little amount of damage. Kennen and Rekkles is actually the AD carry dealing the least in terms of damage percent. And oh, that is pretty
It is much different.
Why do we like it or not?
Well,
like
there's
it?
a bonus AD ratio on the W right now, so it could be good. But Phoenix1 trying to catch out sOAZ.
No flash, remember? He's going to get that Golden Aegis down just for flashiness. But is it at the cost of the inner turret? There's no one here to defend, and Fnatic can cut off anyone trying to cross the lanes.
Yeah, they're just going to stay in this split push strategy right now. And as we saw from the last fight, they can still outplay in the 5v5 team fight. The Corki and the Zach are tremendously good team fighters, and also Rekkles knows exactly how to teamfight on Kennen, so it's by no means a weakness even if Phoenix1 can force. They're trying to get this big wraparound flank, but they guessed on the wrong turret, and now they're going to have to run top.
Well, let's see. Caps decides to jump over the wall. That black shield matters not to Caps' damage. Yes, that's a decent enough taunt, but there's not enough follow-up yet. Caps gets shut down. That was nicely done by MikeYeung. All of a sudden, Jesiz is the target. He's dropped in the back end. Fnatic bit off more than they can chew.
And we have to remember sOAZ is still dead right now. He's not able to TP into a potential fight. Fnatic, because they didn't see MikeYeung and I think Arrow around that top side, thought maybe they can get a quick kill on Xpecial, but he just flashed away. And then suddenly, Fnatic find himself overextended. They actually lose that following fight. And now P1 looking for a bit more.
Yeah, you really have to wonder what they can get after that, because the Baron power play is still going to be positive for Fnatic here since they took so many objectives, now 6 turrets to 3. It will be the Infernal Drake going over, and that does factor in pretty well to P1 scaling since they didn't actually lose an inhibitor during that siege.
All right, 3 dragons on the side of P1. If they can get to Elder, maybe they can claw back the 6,000 gold deficit. But it is a difficult situation to be in, and it just feels like Fnatic have the upper hand.
Well, here, when they actually dive in, as soon as Xpecial flashes away, you're kind of done if you're Fnatic, because there's really no one else you can kill. It's just a bunch of tanks in front of you, and now the enemy team with 5 members against your 4 shows up out of nowhere, and then suddenly MikeYeung and Arrow can actually win the fight here for P1. So a little bit of a misstep there, but P1 does punish it and get an Infernal Drake for it.
Yeah, I will say, like, this is an uninspiring performance by Fnatic, even if they end up winning this game. This is a team that is first place in the European LCS, playing better than they have in years, have this unique play style they bring into the game where they force so many kills in the side lanes, and very little of that has been true in this game against the lowest seed coming out of North America. So even if they walk away with the win, there's going to be a lot of things they need to learn after this game to take throughout the rest of the tournament.
And conversely, on the side of Phoenix1, I'm a little more excited at how their games are going to be throughout the rest of Rift Rivals. You know, we knew MikeYeung and Xpecial brought some new life to this team, the fact they were undefeated last week in NA LCS, and their early game looked good, but there's a lot of map play and macro that they need to try work on. We'll see if they can fix that over the course of the next few days.
I mean, a play like this one from Rio, probably remembering from the time he was in EU LCS how Fnatic always loved to sit in these brushes here, hoping you're kind of overextending in the side lane. He just backed away instantly, and there were actually 3 guys just kind of waiting for nothing. And I think that's the kind of thing for P1. Is they have actually done a good job of not allowing Fnatic to play super fast, not allowing Fnatic to force like these TP plays that we sometimes see from them. They definitely try to play it very,
Black Shield is dead.
Very safe. Jesiz is aiming for someone, not getting anything.
Yeah, Righteous Glory plus Overdrive didn't find his target. 3,200 gold on that Baron power play. The EU average is around 3,600, so pretty good Baron power play, despite the Baron power play throw at the end, that teamfight loss, if that's even a thing.
It's true. It means it was around 5,000 or so before they overstated that turret, because they did actually get a lot of objectives out of that Baron.
And we do have 4 items completed on the Caitlyn for P1. A big spike for him. Obviously, Rekkles, as we talked about earlier, 4th item Hurricane is something we've seen more and more in solo queue from him. But the
Frozen Mallet.
not the Frozen Mallet. Instead, in Vintage, obviously, if you're a Fnatic, you look at all the tanks in front of you, and a Frozen Mallet is not going to help you when it comes to killing the tank in front of you. In Vintage, on the other hand, will definitely help you.
Yeah, a lot of these team fights are going to have to be fought through Phoenix1's front line. So I actually think, even if I haven't checked the mathematically efficient way to build Kennen here, but normally the Frozen Mallet is for the chase downs and for the durability here. But he's actually not as worried about durability as he is about just being able to cut through Galio Kled. Speaking of which, here comes Kled ult.
All right, charges the call.
Way in.
Broxah's got Let's Bounce to potentially escape. Jesiz find a small escape route, and the blast cone buys time for Fnatic. Look at the bottom lane. sOAZ is pushing the inner turret. He's got minions to work with. Golden Aegis will buy some additional time as he's got a GA as well.
No reason for sOAZ to back away because no Baron is alive, so P1 couldn't actually force that teleport away from him. They tried with that fight in the mid lane, but you saw Broxah and Fnatic just instantly disengage.
Yeah, P1 tried that engage 40 seconds too early. If you're going to force them back, get the control of the Baron area for the respawn to force teleports. Now, since they use the Kled ultimate, they're the ones that are recalling, and they're giving Fnatic free time to set up at the Baron.
Because it's really also important to highlight, with all the tanks on P1, they can so easily tank the Baron. Like, they can spend a lot of time baiting around Baron itself, where Fnatic are forced to constantly go in and check and potentially even fight. And then P1 can try with the Gragas to fly into the backline of Fnatic.
Well,
Zig is finding Caps.
Yeah, look at the opportunities, because of course Rekkles is in the top lane.
You see Cap's health? That was one shot. from Arrow. That critical strike build on the Caitlyn with rapid fire cannon static shift is deadly in the late game.
Now they are around this Baron here again. Remember, guys, they can tank it. They have damage from Arrow specifically. Fnatic are now 4 members mid, and Rekkles is on the other side.
Arrow eats a big one, and that chunks him 30 HP. sOAZ not nearly as squishy as Caps. Caps trying to get the Gatling gun down, and the engage. Rekkles is the target. He's forced to flash defensively already. sOAZ and Broxah all the way up on the front line. The Gragas barrel goes wide. It misses Rekkles, and that means MikeYeung's down. Cataclysm is available for sOAZ. Decides not to use it, instead backing away towards Baron.
Caps MVP of that fight. He took Arrow to half health as P1 was trying to prep the engage, and that was a failure of communication. When your AD carry is low like that, you can't make that initiation. So MikeYeung is engaged. There was no follow-up. Fnatic win. Now they go for Baron.
Still got Cataclysm and Let's Bounce. sOAZ, is he going to pull the trigger? GA available, puts it down. Ryu's locked in the pit. Hero's entrance gets him out. Broxah, Let's Bounce, delivers 2 to the back line. Easier for Rekkles to stun them in the maelstrom. A Valkyrie forward from Captain Fnatic ace Phoenix1.
P1 never managed to find the correct team fight to actually punish Fnatic, and now you have super minions. You got Baron buffed up minions, same thing at this point. You also have sOAZ already TPing up there. Fnatic gonna finish the game.
You also got to see the scaling. 4 items on both the Corki and the Kennen. Shred Phoenix1 in that fight.
Well, Nexus turrets fall. 10 kills to 7. It never really felt like Fnatic were out of the game. But Fnatic gonna get one more kill onto the rookie superstar from North America. And Fnatic with an uninspiring win over P1.
Oh, some fun things in that in the last few fights, actually, because it was such a slow setup for the team fights, and everyone wanted like a lot of time to kill the front line. The Blitzcrank from Jesiz actually ended up having a pretty key role where whenever they needed to hit just one target together, Caps and Rekkles, well, then Jesiz would just pull in the one tank, say, okay, now we focus MikeYeung, he's dead, now we focus the next guy, he's dead. Where, of course, on the side of P1, they're kind of like hitting sOAZ a little bit, then hitting Broxah a little bit, and but never really combine the damage, also because it was mainly just Arrow dealing damage.
Yeah, and it felt like Fnatic did find their footing as the game progressed. It started slow. They lost the first turret. They gave up the first blood, but they still knew what to do, right? Even when the game was slowing down, they weren't falling further behind. They were scaling up on the champions they wanted to, and they did know exactly what to do in the team fight. So the combined kills were much lower here, but it's still a 38-minute win with a 13,000 gold lead by the end of it.
And because they have this Zac pick, it's just not as explosive in the early to mid game. They knew they had some scaling from the jungle. They knew they could win the late game fights, and probably played into the fact that, it played into their, playstyle of them not just forcing plays left and right, because Broxah obviously was just waiting for team fights.
Yeah, and of course for the Fnatic squad, a controlled slow victory despite giving up objectives, that's got to feel good. They were in control the entire time. Fnatic, they found their way to victory against Phoenix1 to open up their Rift Rivals campaign. Let's check in with the analysts how they think they did it.
Thank you very much, Trevor. I like that Rift Rivals campaign because it is 4 days if they want to take the title, Fnatic, but they start with a win. Not the start, actually, from both teams in the game that I had expected. MikeYeung did really well, but didn't net his team an incredible gold lead. And on the other side, Fnatic was still controlled by P1, so I at least didn't expect that. And did that spell kind of a bad idea for Phoenix1 from the start for you, or?
I mean, I think it's always concerning when you're up kills and down gold, like when you're in the early game, because, yes, they picked up some kills, and yes, it feels like they have a bit of a lead, but when you are actually losing that heavily in farm across the map, and we were up, 3 turrets to 1, 3 kills to 0, and the gold is like very close, I think that is pretty worrying, going up against a team that should be much better than you in the late game.
Yeah, the thing is that P1, what they tried to do early is like basically punish the fact that Fnatic always opts into the AD carry on side lane early on and basically creates pressure through that. So they tech mid lane as often as possible. But what they didn't account for is just the lack of farm and the amount of farm that they lost by doing that. So they walked mid lane, lost farm on side lane, and this created like this disadvantage that we saw.
Yeah, also you had a little micro annoyance, so to say. Corki with Sorcerer's Shoes, and on the other side, Galio with Rod of Ages. Both of them weren't pleasing you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sorcerer's Shoes is like the right buy for Corki. It's just rushing Sorc Shoes against someone who's going to be rushing MR. Like, essentially, you're building flat pen against someone who's going to be able to build just a Null Magic Mantle for 450 gold and more than negate that. So it's like, as a first buy, I just think that was kind of weird. And then, to me, when you're going up against like a relatively high damage comp and you are like the true frontline, your Gragas is building Runic Echoes, so you have a Galio mid who's then going Roa, and who's your like true frontliner early in the game, right? Like you're delaying this point where you're going to be super strong for so long. And I think that if you can get a little bit of MR and then go to something like a Frozen Heart and Ninja Tabby's very early, Galio is so much more threatening in the team fights.
Yeah, I think so too. Like the amount of silent pressure that Galio negates just by being tanky, which is not accomplished at all because he couldn't go silent. He couldn't really clear mid lane either. So all in all, like this Galio pick, while it was really smart, and I think it really should work against Fnatic and their 1-3-1 approach, it didn't work at all because of the lack of tankiness.
Oh, do you think the itemization was to blame for the fact that they couldn't win fights later on and they didn't have the right priority in the lanes as well? Is it that much?
I mean, I don't know if I would put it all on that. I
Yeah.
think that they just simply got outplayed. I think Fnatic was the better macro team, moved around the map better and stuff, but it certainly doesn't help, right? And
Doesn't
it's
help.
like, it's one of those things where, to me, itemization is something that you should always get right. Like, itemization is something that you can do the math, you can figure it out, you can talk to your analysts, you can talk to your coaches, you can understand what you should be building, and it's an easy thing to kind of like check a box on, you know?
No, for sure. Like itemization should be laid out basically for the game, just like a composition is basically the base for how you play the game. Like itemization is just part of it. So you should discuss before the game what you want to do, at which point do you want to pressure. Now, obviously, if the game changes a bit and you get more leads than you're supposed to, like you may change it up a bit, but it should still like follow a scheme.
Yeah, well, that important or not, you guys mentioned it. Fnatic just had a good macro sense or macro idea of what to do in the game. And you guys said it's all going to come down to one fight and it's going to decide the entire game. So let's take a look at it. So what did it come down to from the side of Phoenix1? Because it seems like a solid engage. Is it played wrong? Is it itemization? Is it the point in the game?
I think like in this team fight especially, like you can see that their focus is almost split. So they have Broxah on the side who they completely neglect late on in the team fight and just focus so much on running it down mid lane. In which case like the counter engage of Fnatic just settles in and they're able to utilize the ultimate just to bring an advantage back in.
I mean, the split focus was so big. Like, multiple people split off to try to go on Broxah. sOAZ ends up living with like a couple health. And if sOAZ is actually committed to by all 5 and they kill him, Broxah may not be able to find that re-engage that kind of nets them the team fight win. And I think that Fnatic played much better in these team fights and played well around the objectives. And once you have that advantage and they get the Baron buff, like it felt like the game was pretty much all but sealed.
Yeah, that it did for the side of Fnatic. Would you say that we're starting to see a shift in kind of identity for Fnatic? Because it's not just that rushing early and getting to that aggressive point after 15 minutes, but it seems even versus you guys, versus Mysterious Monkeys and versus Splice, they show that they can play the slow game as well.
Yeah, I think maybe it's because of Dylan coming in, maybe it's because of them recognizing that on an international level, you may not create these early advantages, that they decide to actually play the game slower and just play to their like identity while like toning down the aggression, making it more calculated, making it more almost replicable against better teams.
And I think, you know, when you're playing Zach, you don't have to go as crazy in the early game, right? This is not an Elise, this is not a Lee Sin or Nidalee or whatever. Like, you don't have to go off in the early game. So if they can play both styles based on the picks that they have, like that's going to be the ideal world for them.
Well, a strong win nevertheless for Fnatic. And let's head over to Dracos and find out what Fnatic support thinks about that game.
Thank you very much, Shocks. I am, of course, joined by Jesiz. Now, that game coming in, Fnatic praised. You're going to be the top team. You're going to take down everybody. You did take down Phoenix1, but maybe not quite as quickly or as confidently as people expected. Tell me, how did you feel about that performance?
I think they played Morgana, at least from my perspective, they played Morgana against Blitz, so it was really just farm bot, unless we were able to like get mid priority and stuff and like pull 4-man to bot lane, which didn't really happen. And then as soon as they sort of got like a lead on the solo lanes, they just had like Galio, so making plays overall was really difficult for us. And we had to play like much slower than we usually do. But yeah, overall, not the worst of games, but not the greatest.
Definitely pull out the win in the end, which is the most important part, no doubt. Looking up against it, what was the experience like playing up against a North American team compared to your experience in the EU LCS so far this season? What was the biggest thing that kind of stood out to you?
Just on Phoenix1 or?
Just on P1, yeah, from playing against them.
I don't know. They just play like most. I mean, at least from this game, they just play like most EU teams, just like super meta and super slow. I guess they did have some engagements and stuff, but they're just like a mid-tier meta team, I guess, just standard.
Were you surprised to see it be so similar compared to Europe? I know a lot of people like think that there's a lot of differences between the metas between the two places. In your experience, has that been the case? Having worked in NA, played in Europe, what do you think the biggest differences are?
I don't know if there's many differences. I think the metas are relatively similar. Most people are just playing like the Caitlyn stuff and like 1-4 Caitlyn I don't know, like strong top and ganking top, this kind of stuff. But I don't think there's much difference, no.
All right, interesting to hear that. Now, of course, Fnatic, once again, praise, #1 team coming in, a lot of expectations on your shoulders. How does that affect you guys going into games? And you've got Cloud9 coming up next. Does this feel like more pressure on you guys to perform at an event like this?
I don't think there's that much pressure. I personally feel that this tournament is a bit in good fun. Obviously, I'm expecting to win most games, but I don't think there's any unnecessary pressure or anything.
I like it. Taking it cool, taking it calm, collectible. Thank you so much for taking time to meet. Congrats again on your win over Phoenix1. We're going to toss to a quick break, but when we get back, G2's chance for redemption going up against Cloud9, or will it be NA's second win here at day one of Rift Rivals?
He's actually